let's get into it. Hi everybody, it's QuiteGoneJin here, bringing you another video. Today we're going to discuss MMOs, why I don't play them anymore, and a little bit about my top 7 experiences in MMO history. Before I get started, I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Chuck Walton, the creator of my wallpaper here. He has a DeviantArt page dedicated to one of my favorite role-playing games of all time, Rifts by Palladium. Check it out, it's really cool. Before I start ragging on MMOs and start dissing them and sounding like one of them old timers that's like, oh, back in the day I used to play MMOs while walking uphill both ways. Well, before I become that guy, I want to tell you my top 7 favorite experiences in my MMO history. Number 1, Neverwinter Nights. I played Neverwinter Nights online. Yeah, I beat the campaign, but also coming with the box set was a world creator, a campaign creator. Other people could come onto your computer using it as a server and play in your worlds, and if you allowed PvP, it had PvP. So I joined Dark Sun Online. The reason why I joined this is because my favorite fantasy novels ever, and the first fantasy novels I ever read, were from that realm. It was called Dark Sun. It was a TSR, Wizards of the Coast set of books based on a Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting. Well, if someone told you you could play a role-playing game with other people with full PvP and PvE based on your favorite fantasy book ever, you would probably jump right in, right? So did I, and I loved it. A little bit about this experience. With the PvP, they had an arena, but they also had full PvP outside of the arena. But if you won in the arena, you became the champion. They put up a statue of your character, named it after you, and even created a special weapon that was basically just yours. This weapon was named after you, and it had special stats that you could ask for. They would keep it toned down a bit if you were like, oh, I wanted to kill everybody and AoE destroy the world. I forgot to mention there was multi-classing in this game, so you really had to be innovative in creating your favorite class. You wouldn't just be a fighter. You would have a few levels of fighter, a few levels of monk, and a couple levels of druid. And I had that exact build, and it became something very powerful, and that's how I won the axe. Until one day, I ran into a monk who specialized in disarming. And when he disarmed me, my axe fell to the ground, not my inventory, and he picked it up. And I was useless. And he laughed in my face. And so started one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in MMOs, RPGs. No, not exactly massively multiplayer, but still an online RPG. Next, I would say Shadowbane. Shadowbane was a true MMO. In that it was very big, and it had risk versus reward as well. It had free character customization, a player economy, and political story. It basically had, oh my god, how many? Probably 20 races and 40 classes, and everyone could choose up to 3 subclasses from a pool of about 50. It was skill base, so when you leveled, you could decide to put points into a certain skill, weapon, magic, whatever, and at certain percentages, these skills would unlock new powers and abilities, and even your stats were fully customizable, your strength, dexterity, etc., etc. So you would have wildly different characters based on your own innovations. The game was fully lootable and full PvP enabled, including everything that you had on your character that wasn't equipped would fall to the ground to his graveyard when he died, and if someone decided to loot it before you came back to it, your shit was gone, including your money. So you had to bank everything, and the tension was really high. Thieves could even walk up on you, stealth, look in your bag, decide what they want to steal it, and then try to get away or try to re-stealth before you stop them. People in your own party would kill you. They'd party with you for hours and farm with you and then decide to stab you in the back. So the story was extremely character created. No good gear was dropped by bosses, no quests, no quest markers, no instances, just a big open world where you had to create your own cities and create your own vendors and go to war with other people and destroy their cities, destroy their home, destroy their guild tag, destroy their ability to quick travel. So the tension in this game was amazing. I loved it. Now, number 3, World of Warcraft. Yes, World of Warcraft does hold a special place in my heart. Season 6 arena. I had a Retribution Paladin, and he was basically a combat paladin, not a healing tanky paladin. Kind of underpowered, but they were coming into their own around Season 6. Grinded my way up to 2200 elo, which was pretty high at the time. I'm not really sure what it is now, and got my last piece of gear, my Season 6 gear, the shoulders, and it was such hard work. It was in pairs, so 2 versus 2 in the arena, and we'd spend weeks, just weeks. I remember spending a whole Christmas vacation in the arena, and just battling it out to get these shoulders. Other stuff too, I mean, I really liked the fact that my guild was the first guild to destroy Sunwell on my server, which was a PvE raid, and since I didn't like raiding, it was too much commitment and too much time and too many people, but you know, it was still nice in small doses. And of course, Alterac Valley, that battleground. I mean, I never really liked battlegrounds. I'll do them. They're in lots of MMOs and I'll do them if I have to, and they seem to be the way everyone's going, but I prefer open world and I prefer fighting over resources. But Alterac Valley had a different feel to it. There are many different types of fights you would get involved in there, and if you were a stealther trying to get past the back line, that was interesting. So it was a good experience for me too. The next one, number 4, would be City of Heroes. City of Heroes was superpowers done right and customization done right. No game has ever measured up to City of Heroes for me when it comes to character customization and the things you can do to your look. You could even change your particle effects for your powers. You could write a bio for your story, and when people right-clicked on you, they'd see that bio and they'd know more about what kind of superhero or villain you were. The travel powers were amazing. Teleport, fly, super speed running up walls, and super leaping. Or you could decide to make a character with no superpowers and try to be some crazy nut in a suit. Batman. Excuse me. Then when City of Villains came out and PvP started, it was in a very large open world kind of environment in an instance, but very large, with certain things to fight over, resources to fight over, and you could combat people with those travel powers at full speed. They suppressed it later on, where when you attacked someone in a travel power, your travel power would slow down to a crawl, and that's when things got worse. But fighting someone with teleport all over the place and super jumping in another direction and stealthing, like you can imagine, it was really hectic and honestly just amazing, and the tension was awesome. And you could really tell your story too in this game with Holodeck. I forget exactly what it's called, where you could create a story and other people could go in and experience it. You could go in with people and experience it, and you couldn't do PvP in there, but still it was really, really nice. That was my City of Heroes experience. The next was Warhammer Online. It had castle sieging and territory control. It still had battlegrounds, but this was the first time that you could get full experience in battlegrounds, so you could level in PvP, and there was even a random chance for very good loot to drop in it. Also, I just had one of those experiences that I fell in love with a character in that game. The character abilities in that game were very interesting, and I liked them a lot. There was this class called a Witch Hunter, and the Witch Hunter was a pistol packing, rapier in one hand, rogue-esque type of character who could stealth for a very short period of time, and I created a build that had 100% parry chance for a very short period of time and only in a cone in front of you. Also, riposte damage meant if I parried someone's attack, it did damage back to them. So it would pop out of stealth and initially scare someone into trying to get them to do all of their best powers right off the bat to kill me or control me, and that's when I would throw my parry up and all the damage would be done to them, and then I'd finish them off with my gun. It got to the point where I was being called a hacker in that game, and of course that's always in PvP when someone says that oh, you're too good, you're hacking, or hacker. When someone calls you a hacker, it's like the pinnacle of a compliment. They just don't know they're complimenting you at the time. Next, SWTOR, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Game's still going. Being a freaking Jedi, I mean, come on. With a name like QuiteGoneJin, hello, QuiteGoneJin, you can pretty much know for sure that I'm a huge Star Wars nut. The powers and the abilities and the classes are very interesting. The game was completely voice acted in all the leveling from 1 to the end game. And some of the PvP battlegrounds, even though it was a battleground, were really cool, like Huttball. Huttball is fantastic. Look it up. Huttball is amazing. I won't get into it. That made my experience just amazing, and I love SWTOR because of it. I don't have a specific experience in that game because the story was different for every class, so experiencing the story for sure, playing Huttball for sure, being a bounty hunter that shoots a hydraulic grappling hook and pulling someone in and then basically Street Fighter uppercutting them in the rocket assisted Street Fighter uppercutting them in the face was pretty damn cool in PvP. And then last but not least, WildStar. Probably the last MMO I played, really. What can I say about this game? It's still going. A little bit cartoony, but very Pixar high quality cartoony. The animations are beautiful, the movement is very fluid, and everything is aimed. You can aim everything, including AoE. As a matter of fact, almost every ability is an AoE. Everything can be dodged, and you can see via telegraphs, like the red circle on the ground, when someone's aiming something at you, and you can try to get out of the way. So PvP became very skill-based. PvE became very skill-based. The story was very whimsical and fun. That alone made the game absolutely fantastic for me. I loved it. Just dodging and aiming everything. But also they had a limited action set, which means you have all of your abilities and you can customize them in different ways, which was nice about WildStar. There is some good customization in it. And every class had 2 ways of playing, but the limited action set meant you could only have so many powers on your bar at once. So yeah, that sounds like, oh, I can't use everything, but it also meant you had to create good combinations. And everyone else did too. So it's not like you were the only one with this limited action set. I really like it, and I hope more games go that way. So those are some of my absolute favorite experiences in MMO. So why don't you play MMOs anymore, QuiteGoneJin? What's wrong with you? Well, this is where it all went wrong. Battlegrounds, for one. Battlegrounds, here's an example. Neverwinter, not Neverwinter Nights. Neverwinter had one battleground in it for years before they tried to add other PvP, and it was instanced and it was imbalanced and people didn't care about it. No risk on death, no fear of dying in an open world. Too many games decided to do battlegrounds. Too many games decided that PvP for PvP's sake is enough. You just fight to fight, and once you win, you're like, I won. That's the best part of it. No, you need a reason to fear losing. You need a reason to want to win. Whether it's resources, whether it's a loss of experience, whether it's inventory in your bag, whether it's territory control. There's got to be a good reason that you want to win besides just playing a fighter for fighting's sake. Another big one, a huge deal, is games being pushed out too early. MMOs are a huge venture. MMOs take millions of dollars and many years to create, and I think developers get itchy and start pushing the games out too early. So SWTOR was like that. 90% of that game's budget was 10% of the player's experience. When I put it that simply, it sounds like it's doomed to fail, right? Lucky it went free to play. So they spent all this money on voice acting and made the leveling 1 to end game experience amazing. But 90% of your game experience when you play an MMO is after you get to the end level. And if none of the effort is put into that part of the game, then the game shouldn't be released yet. WildStar was very similar. Its PvP was extremely buggy. Its PvE was very lacking at the end game. And maybe Kickstarters need to be the way to go for the future for MMOs, because then you have no pressure from someone else saying, put your game out early. I don't care. You need to make these millions back right away or else we're going to drop you. And Kickstarter people can be like, oh, fuck you. We got our own funding. We're going to do it the way we want. It's our vision. It's our game. That's a good hope, positive thought for the future. And last but not least is customization. So when you play a good role-playing game, it's because you can create the role that you want to play. Who would have thought? Most MMOs nowadays don't have the ability to add your stat points as you go along. Like, yeah, you'll get strength and dexterity and constitution from your gear, because gear is a big part of MMOs and seems to be the only thing they care about nowadays. It's just giving you quote-unquote fat loots. That actually bores the shit out of me, by the way. But if you can't choose to put points into strength, into dex, into con every level, then you can't create a character that's truly your own. I know developers are afraid we're going to break their game and make something that's overpowered, but tough shit, really. Let us do it, figure it out, balance it in patches. That's what patching is all about. Yeah, it's going to hurt some people in their flavor of the month builds, but they'll have to suck it up and move on, and that's how a game evolves, and that's what keeps it fresh. So customization is a big deal. Skill-based systems where you can put points into the skill that you want to increase. You don't just have the skill. I have sword skill, done. No, you have skill at certain levels and you have certain abilities that unlock at those levels. I think those kind of things are very helpful. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but those are where things went wrong. No risk versus reward, too many instance PvP games, and not enough character customization. You don't want to run into another rogue that has 2 daggers. Okay, so if you're a rogue that has 2 daggers and has light armor, I immediately know your whole build and your whole playstyle because there's not a lot of character customization in the game. It's kind of dull. So there is a light on the other end of the tunnel, a silver lining in the cloud, and that is at least a handful of very PvP-centric MMOs that are coming out in the future that add customization, that add all these things that I've been asking for. I'm going to give you 4 and let you know about them. Hopefully, at least 1 or 2 of them were not on your radar and will now be after the end of this video. 1. Das Tal. In the words of the creators of that game, Das Tal is, quote unquote, a fast-paced sandbox MMORPG that focuses on player interaction. Full loot and open PvP create a game of risk versus reward, where you weigh up your options before engaging others. PvP is never restricted, but cooperation is always rewarded. This is a stylistic, isometric, I want to call it like a dual stick PvP game, and that's when you have a controller with 2 sticks. one moves you and the other one aims. There is a field of vision. You can't see behind you. There are resources to fight over, and cooperation is enticed but not necessary. And I think the game world gets wiped fairly often in this game. So it's kind of like once you've dominated, they'll start it fresh. It looks very promising, and it looks like a very good game to drop in, do some action really quick, have something worth fighting over, winning and losing, and get out. Almost feels like a MOBA experience, but a bit more permanent. Let's go on to the next one. The next one is Albion Online. This one is very similar in that it has that 3/4 isometric view. It has more of an emphasis on territory control in that you can actually build up cities and farms and communities and go to war with other communities and really control and change the map. I think that's more of an emphasis in Albion Online. One of the things they both have in common, I forgot to mention with WildStar, is that in both games, your abilities are based on the items that you put on your character. Meaning if you have a sword, you'll have sword-like powers and you can level up your sword and do things based on the sword, but it's not, you don't pick a class, you pick gear. If you were wearing heavy armor and have a wand, you're going to be a heavy armor magic caster. As long as there's some kind of customization, I really don't give a shit how it's done. I like the idea of it. I'll have to see it fleshed out to know more, but they both sound very promising. The big thing is that they're both fully lootable too. That's, there's that risk versus reward that I want. And I don't think there's any instancing involved in Albion, and in Das Tal, the instances is the whole server, each fight, each area you're fighting over. So it's not like everybody's broken down into so many small spots. Next is Camelot Unchained by the creators, Mark Jacobs and his team, of the cult classic and amazing game called Dark Age of Camelot. I never played it. I can't get into it too much, but I know that, going back to, 2000 and something, early 2000s, Camelot Unchained was a huge game that lasted a very, very long time, and it did well because it had 3 factions, meaning fully open world PvP, but there was never an imbalance in the games. And this is one of the problems with other MMOs in the past, like Warhammer Online, where a server would become imbalanced between 2 different factions and the whole server would become unfun. An easy way to combat that is to have 3 factions. No one faction stayed on top for long. Once you've done that, it's pretty much like the balancing is not even an issue anymore. So that's fantastic. There's also this aspect of a living, breathing, evolving underworld, some kind of organism that's also part of the planet. Looks great. I can't say too much more about the game because it is developing slowly, and I lost a little bit of my excitement for it because of delays, but it still looks extremely promising, and I suggest you check it out. Last but not least, probably the one I'm the most excited about is Crowfall. Crowfall is a spiritual successor to Shadowbane. It has that multiple races and classes, skill-based system, discipline runes, or those 3, as I mentioned earlier, I called them 3 subclasses. All of those aspects that Shadowbane had, but they're creating their own engine, and it looks a lot more up to date. They're also adding in some aspects of WildStar in that every ability is aimed, every ability can be dodged, and there is also something to be very excited about in the fact that there are destructible environments. You can plow through walls with the right tools, magic, abilities, powers, etc. You can dig under them in sieges. You can destroy them and have them fall down on top of people. I don't think it's just walls that can be destroyed. I'm just using them as an example. I'm pretty sure the whole thing, like all of the ground, can be terraformed and destroyed and trees cut down and walls, etc. So between all of the risk versus reward in the open world combat and the classes and races and disciplines and tension that Shadowbane had, but then add in a very skill-based combat system with everything being aimed and dodged, and then a destructible environment, has me chomping at the bit for more. All right, guys. In the end, like an offline RPG, I need a good story in my MMO RPGs. It's still an RPG for me. But being an online atmosphere, it means that the story is derived from my interaction with other players, not with the game, not with NPCs, not with fat loots. If there's no tension, if the interaction is formulaic and derived from old school WoW clone mechanics from 12 years ago, then I can't stick around. I just don't have any fun with it at all. It's really boring for me. So MMOs need to feel this tension. They need to have a non-formulaic setting, and this way the developers can add whatever spin they need to create their own unique universe. Then they'll have me hooked. Then I suspect they'll have a lot of people hooked. And it looks like a lot of games are going that way. So let's keep an eye out. If you know of any games that fit this kind of description that are out right now, oh my God, tell me. I would be very excited to check them out. And that's basically it. That's my MMO rant. That's my reasons why I don't play it anymore, and the top 7 experiences I had in MMOs in the past, as well as a little list of future silver linings. Thanks so much for sticking around for my rant. I love you guys. You're fantastic. Please hit the like, subscribe, and comment button. I'd love to hear from you. And that's it. That's me signing off. Have yourself a great day, guys. QuiteGoneJin saying, thanks kindly.